Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of our Leadership and Skills series. I am so happy to have
Mm.
Tejal with me today. Tejal, loved working with you on and off over many,
Oh,
many
thank you.
years. So wise and insightful, and so much interesting kind of background and experience to draw on. So thank you so much for joining me. And would you like to tell the audience a little bit more about
Yeah,
you and your background?
yeah, thank you. And thank you for having me.
Pleasure.
So my name's Tejal. I have just left Kantar, a brand and marketing company, and I headed up talent there. But my career is really squiggly. So I've got financial experience, I've got commercial experience, I've got lots of transformation experience. And adding the sort of the HR and the talent lens, and then lots of AI adoption experience just rounds me out. And so I've got
Mm.
lots of points of view on AI adoption and leadership of the future. And I can't wait to have this conversation. So thank you for
You have
inviting
got,
me.
pleasure. You have got lots of points of view, and our lunches are some of my favourite moments of the week as well, because we go off in
And
all
me.
different directions, and I'm so happy to get your voice out there even in this little
Yeah,
way to get
thank you.
people listening.
Yeah.
Your view, Tejal, on the leader of tomorrow. What do you think?
Yeah. And it's such a big, fascinating question. So
Eight
I
minutes
loved
is
it. So
not
thank you
enough.
for asking me. Exactly. So I'm going to try and be super concise. So
Yeah.
I think about it in four buckets around how leaders adapt, how they solve problems, the connection, and how they really inspire their team. So let me start with adapt. Um, the pace of change is so fast and it's never going to slow down. And
No.
I really strongly believe leaders need to absolutely own that change leadership
Mhm.
piece. It's not good enough to say that, the powers that be at the top of the house have designed this or said this, and we're going to, they need to buy into that and they need to be really the architects of translating quite a lofty strategic ambition
Mhm.
from that CEO or exec team
Mhm.
into something that's tangible and meaningful for their team in a context of tons of fear, tons of anxiety in their
Mm.
teams.
Mm.
Um, and they also need to be comfortable to navigate ambiguity and uncertainty and paradox because there is so much unknown there. So things like, how do they balance speed
Mm.
but also innovation? How do
Mhm.
they balance productivity, but also maintain the culture? How do they deliver today, but
Mhm.
also build for tomorrow? There's some really big tensions there. So, how
Mhm.
they navigate that is
Mhm.
really important.
Mhm.
And a big part of this is I believe that leaders really need to drive and build their AI fluency.
Yeah.
It's not enough for them just to use Copilot to summarize meeting notes, from their day. Um, they need to lean in, they need to
Mhm.
roll their sleeves up and
Mhm.
really work through the use cases of AI because actually they need to be able to think big. So
Mm.
that brings
Mm.
me on to how they solved
Just sorry,
problem.
Tedra, just quickly
Yeah,
on the AI piece. Do you think, so if I think about leaders, we've spent so many years, haven't we, kind of mastering the skills of delegation and
yeah,
empowering. And I love what you're saying there around like actually rolling sleeves up and getting stuck in.
yeah,
Is that one of the reasons why that's quite a big ask? Because it's
yeah.
in contrast to what we've maybe been focusing on.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, leaders are pulled in a million different directions.
Yeah.
They're driving revenue, they need to cut costs, they need to restructure their teams.
Yeah.
DEI and the culture is really important as well.
Mm.
And suddenly we're saying, oh, you need to roll your sleeves up and get really involved in learning about AI.
Yeah.
But I think it's critical because, the investment upfront now is going to serve them really well for the future because when you've got super smart people thinking about how to use AI in use cases, you still need the leadership around how you're going to be ethical with the use of that AI. Is
Mhm.
it going to create value, and are you prioritizing the right place to adopt it?
Mhm.
How are you going to build that accountability loop into using AI? How is it
Mhm.
auditable?
Mhm.
Um, so leaders need to be really well rounded in
Mhm.
thinking this stuff through, and they can only do that if they've you know, grappled themselves, and if they've
Yeah.
built their own custom GPT so that they understand what's
hmm
involved.
Amazing. Thank you.
Otherwise, they're not going to be able to add value,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
I'm
yeah. They
really
don't
honest.
understand. No, you carry on. You were on a good roll there. Go on.
So I think the next piece is really around how do they solve problems and how do they think critically. And
hmm
so, in that world of AI, there's research now around AI slop, which
mm
is basically AI generated work that
mm
sort of misses the mark in terms of context. And so you need leaders to apply that judgment around what's great, what's not, the good, bad, and ugly, right?
hmm
And
hmm
you want leaders to be able to really fine tune that judgment muscle,
hmm
um, to be able to question assumptions, challenge the data, interrogate any biases. How do they make decisions with that incomplete information? And I think that's really important. But paired with that, very sort of structured, systemic kind of way of thinking, you
hmm
need real creativity because
mm
ultimately AI is only going to create value if you are open to thinking big
Yeah,
and being able to reimagine some of the work that you need to do to achieve these outcomes. And
yeah.
to reimagine work, you do need to apply your brain as a leader.
hmm
You need to be
hmm
really creative,
hmm
to think through if you had a white piece of paper, blank piece of paper, and you had this objective to improve your customer experience or improve your colleague experience, what would that look like, and
hmm
how would you use AI to help you do that? But you need that real kind of judgment and experience paired with super strong kind of creativity to even just see what is the real problem here and how do we manage through some blind spots, and how do we get to the real value.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that reimagine, and I think that as a word it can be underestimated, right? In terms of the
Mm,
level of reimagination that we actually
mm,
need to be able to use it properly. Okay,
mm.
all right, amazing. Any final kind of nuggets for people?
I think with any change, you just can't forget about centering it around people. And so
Yeah.
connection is super, super important for me.
hmm
And that for me is a differentiator around how well your AI strategy and is gonna land. So for me, the Gallup research shows that 70% of people are disengaged at work at the moment. That's a
Wow.
huge amount of people. And so I think leaders have a real responsibility to really drive that connection. And that can mean lots of different things. So it'll be around creating a brilliant culture where you are encouraging psychological safety, people to experiment, to treat failure as learning. And it's
hmm
easy to say, but really hard to actually embed into your culture and your DNA of how you operate.
hmm
And leaders really need to connect with their team members to encourage that examination of what's gone well, what hasn't, what would we learn from it, what would we do differently. And that sort of coaching culture is really important. So without that connection, I just think transformation is going to fail. So I think it's on leaders to really role model transformation with heart and bringing their people on the journey with them.
Amazing. And I think just kind of final words from for me would be I think you're actually an amazing role model for that in terms of your own data and technology literacy. But I think what's
Mm,
clear even through this conversation is your curiosity and your passion for people
mm,
and the way that
absolutely.
that you kind of clearly see that commercial link as well between the two,
Yeah,
and you can't do one
absolutely.
without the other. Look, we knew that it was going to be hard to fit this in. We'll need to do a longer session another time.
I
But
know.
I think thank you for sharing even just those views on leadership. And I think as we look ahead to 2026, this is the stuff that people need to be thinking about. So thank you so much,
Absolutely.
Rachel. And thank you for joining me, and I'll look forward to seeing you soon. Thank
Can't
you.
wait to see you next. Take care. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.